In 2008, while out deer hunting, Ryan was stalked by something large through the woods. Before we get into his story, welcome back to Dark Wilderness, where I share encounters with the unexplained. If you've had an encounter you would like to share, please email it to me at the link below. And if you like today's story, please gently slap that like button, as I'll be uploading 3 to 5 times every week. So please don't forget to shoot that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. Now, let's get into today's encounter. In 2008, Ryan was deer hunting out in western Manitoba with his dad, a couple of his uncles, and a few of his cousins. They were hunting out by the town of Birtle, Manitoba, which is located by the Saskatchewan border, and it's right at the top of the Assiniboine Valley. It's an area Ryan grew up hunting, and he loved being out there every year. It became a family tradition, he said, for him, his dad, and his uncles to go out there and just spend the week enjoying each other's company. They had gotten out there on the Sunday afternoon, and it was still muzzleloading season. Ryan didn't really plan on hunting that afternoon. He just wanted to spend the afternoon setting up a couple of his stands, a couple of his blinds, and just enjoying some time on the farm. The following morning, which was the start of rifle season, Ryan said he hunted the same stand he hunts every single year. It's his favorite spot to be, and it overlooks that valley. He said that morning was a great hunt. He saw quite a few deer, but there was just nothing he really felt like pulling the trigger on. So that evening, he was going to go sit in one of his uncle's spots. Now, his uncle had been out there for an entire week already, and he had not seen anything at this spot. But Ryan didn't care. He really liked that spot. He just wanted to spend the first night in that location. So when it came time to go for the evening hunt, Ryan's dad drove him in. Now, to get where he had to go, they had to cross this cornfield, and this cornfield runs to a bush line. And right where that bush line starts, there's a cut line that's about 30 meters wide, and it runs for about 3/4 of a mile. And right at the very end, it just dead ends at another bush line. Along that cut, there's 3 other cut lines that come off of that. And Ryan was going to be hunting on the first one, and his dad was going to be down on that third one. So while they were driving in, they got to that first cut. Ryan's dad stopped. Ryan got out of his dad's Jeep, grabbed his stuff. They wished each other luck, and Ryan went walking into this location. So he had to walk about 400 yards down this narrow cut line that was about 5 meters wide. So he walked 400 meters to the end, and that's where his uncle had his blind set up. So when Ryan got to the blind, he unzipped the blind, climbed in, zipped the blind back up. It just settled in for the evening hunt. He sat there until dark, and he said that the entire time he was there, he heard nothing. No noise, no nothing. And he said he had this feeling like he was being watched almost the entire time. But as it started to get darker, he said that feeling got a little bit stronger. So when it came time to climb out of the tent, he was pretty nervous, but he knew he just had 400 meters to walk to get to that cut line, and that's where his dad was going to be waiting for him. So he unzipped the tent, climbed out, zipped it back up, and started walking back down that narrow cut. He said the entire time walking down this cut, he just had this overwhelming feeling of being watched. So he said he was super nervous, but he just kept going because he knew, okay, I'm almost at my dad's Jeep, and I'll be out of here. So when he got to the Jeep, him and his dad drove back to camp where his uncle had his trailer set up. They said goodbye to his uncles that were staying at the trailer, and him and his other uncles and his other cousin, they ended up going all the way back to the nearest town where they had a hotel for the night. The next morning, they got up, they went back to the farm. Ryan said he hunted that exact spot that he hunted the morning before. That afternoon, he spent a little bit of time walking around. He said he was just didn't feel like going back to the trailer. He just wanted to walk around and see if he happened to come across any deer in the process. When it got closer to the time for the evening hunt, he was trying to decide where he was going to go. He was torn between a couple spots, but he really, really liked that spot of his uncle's. So it turned out that his uncle wasn't going to be hunting there that night. So Ryan, even though he had that eerie feeling the night before, he decided, you know what, I'm going to give this spot another chance because I've seen tons of deer in here before, and I'm not just going to let a little feeling keep me away from this spot. So same thing as the night before, he got in his dad's Jeep, they drove across that field, drove down that cut, dad stopped, let him out, and he walked that 400 meters to the blind. He said it was the exact same thing as the day before. He said the entire time he was sitting there, he just heard nothing. Didn't see anything and heard nothing. He said, so now it's getting towards the end of legal, and he's getting pretty nervous because he remembers that feeling he had the day before when he was walking down that cut. So he's sitting there. Now it's the end of legal light, so now he knows, okay, he has to start walking down this cut to go meet with his dad. So he grabs his rifle, unzips the blind again, climbs out, zips that blind back up, and he takes a couple of steps, he said, and he said all of a sudden off to his right, he hears a loud crack, like something just stepped on like a big branch. So he kind of stops and he's listening, trying to figure out what made that stick crack. So he's looking into the bush and he said he can't see nothing. It's just pitch black outside at this point. So he said he stood there for a few minutes, just listening, and he didn't hear any more movement, so he figured, okay, maybe the wind blew a branch and it fell and broke. So he starts walking down the cut again. And he said as he starts walking again, he hears something moving through the bush to his right, where he heard that stick crack. He said so he stops. The noise beside him stops. So he's getting a little bit nervous now, even more so than before. He said so he takes a few more steps, and he said as soon as he started walking again, that noise picked back up. Whatever it was started moving again. So he stopped, and that noise stopped. So now he's trying to figure out what is doing this. Like, why is this thing moving when I'm moving and stopping when I'm stopping? So he takes a few more steps, and same thing again. So now he's super nervous. So he pulls his radio out, and he radios to his dad. And just asks him, hey, where are you? I don't see your lights. Something weird's going on. I have something in the bush beside me, and I don't know what it is. His dad said, yeah, I'm on my way. I'll be there in a couple of minutes. So Ryan said he told his dad, okay, just hurry because something really weird's going on. So Ryan put his radio back in his pocket, and he kept walking. And he said, again, as soon as he started moving, this thing in the bush started moving with him. He said it was slightly behind him to the right. And he said it sounded like it was probably no more than 15 yards away. He said it sounded close and it sounded heavy. So he said he's walking down the cut. Now he's about 150 yards from where the cut kind of opens up a little bit. And that's typically where his dad parks a Jeep, and he would get into the Jeep there. He said so as he's walking, he's getting closer to that spot, and he starts picking the pace up a bit because he's getting pretty nervous because he doesn't know what's beside him. He said as he's walking, he could actually see his dad's headlights coming through the trees up ahead to his right. So now he's starting to pick the pace up a little bit more. And he said right when he could see his dad start to turn into that clearing, he said he just started to sprint. And he said whatever this thing was behind him just started booking it through the trees. He said it was just crazy amount of cracking and snapping of tree limbs and branches. And he said right as his dad turned and was facing him, so now the headlights were shining right on him, he said he panicked, and he said he just fired a shot into the trees on his left. And he said when he did that, he heard something behind him, that thing that had been following through the bush. He said he heard it whip across the cut line behind him onto the left side now. So he was only at this point now about 25 yards from the Jeep, so he just ran up to the Jeep, opened the door, and just jumped in. And when he jumped in, he said his dad's first words were, "What the F was that whipped across behind you?" And Ryan's he said, what did you see? And his dad said, I don't know what it was. He said, but it was big and it was dark. He said it was not a bear and it was not a moose. He said it was not long enough to be a moose, but way too tall to be a bear. He said this thing was probably at least 2.5 feet taller than Ryan, and Ryan's 6 feet tall. So whatever this was about 8.5 feet tall. And even though Ryan didn't see it, his dad just caught a glimpse of this thing. It left his dad kind of asking a bunch of questions too, like, what is this thing? Well, that's it for today's encounter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.